All right, everybody, we are live with our very first episode of Controlled Chaos. I'm your host, Jason Liederfine, Army combat veteran, the current chief operating officer for Cage Fury Fighting Championships live on UFC Fight Pass. We got a really special guest for our first episode today, King Mo Lawal, former Strikeforce champion, multiple time wrestling national champion, one of the best coaches on the face of the earth. We're going to bring him in just a minute. But first, we want to give you a little clip of what's coming up May 29th at Liberty Hill.
The Union League of Philadelphia, a patriotic society where love of country leads, is proud to come together at Union League Liberty Hill to celebrate our nation's 250th birthday in a very special way. In partnership with Cage Fury Fighting Championships, a company with a long history of special events, from shows at our nation's largest military base to a barn in the mountains of the Rockies, they're not shy to try something bold. CFFC embraces a rich tradition of developing some of combat sports' most storied athletes and champions. The road to the top is long and winding, and it all starts here.
The future champion.
On Friday, May 29th, that road to the top passes through Union League Liberty Hill. One night of fights to make history and celebrate our nation's anniversary while we raise money for two incredible charities. This is the thrill on the hill.
Well, welcome to King Mo. I appreciate you taking the time and joining us.
What's up? Thanks for having me, man.
Man, absolutely. I couldn't imagine a better person for episode one than a guy that I talk to all the time anyway, that I seek information from. But now it's time for people to really meet King Mo, and I want him to understand who you are or where you come from. So let's start from the beginning. Born in beautiful Tennessee, but for some reason you guys left beautiful Murfreesboro, and you went to what, Texas?
No, Richmond, Kentucky.
Kentucky, right? Okay,
Yeah.
so tell me about that.
My mom, she moved around a lot because she was trying to get a nursing degree. So she moved from Murfreesboro to Richmond, Kentucky, to Oklahoma, back to Richmond, Kentucky, to Oklahoma, to Texas. So she moved around a lot to try to finish her education.
When did you get introduced to wrestling? Was that not until high school?
Yeah, high school, 10th grade.
So
Yeah.
you didn't even start wrestling until you were 10th grade in high school.
Yeah, I started late.
I mean, to do what you did after 10th grade, see most of these kids now. I mean, even look at like a guy like Mako. His kid's probably been wrestling since he was 4 years old, 5 years old. And now those are the guys that are at the national level, where you didn't start till you were 14, 15, 16 years old and had an extremely storied career. How did you transition, starting as a 10th grade year? How did you transition to wrestling and being so successful?
Well, I remember after a football game, the coach said, if you want to be better as a football player, because in Texas, everyone wants to be a football player. the coach said, I think Coach Philip McCullough said, if you want to be a better football player, meet me in the mat room in 2 weeks at 8 in the morning, and you're gonna wrestle. So I showed up with my socks on, and I was ready to wrestle, and I had fun, man. Like I ended up being good, and there's a kid, I forgot his name, but I bought his wrestling shoes off of him for like $20. And then I wore them. They're too small, but I wore them anyway. And that was
what people don't know is you were also a wide receiver in playing football. So you were a successful football player on top of wrestling, but wrestling obviously became your love and motivating sport that you stayed in.
Yeah. I just like the fact that wrestling was it was a faster pace. There was no huddle. There was no timeout. It was one-on-one, and it was physical. It was like a legit fight. The stronger, smarter, and better conditioned man is the one that usually wins. So I like to take my odds with that on myself than taking my odds with somebody that's going to jump off sides or miss a field goal or drop a pass.
Blindside you.
You're a blindside you. So I read the one-on-one action. There's no excuses. Who's the better man that day?
Well, one thing that's great about wrestling too is it's a relatively cheap sport to participate in. You bought a pair of shoes for $20. You get yourself a headgear from the coach that probably somebody left laying around in the room, and they issue you a singlet. That's all you need.
Yeah.
Where football, you're buying all this gear and cleats and expensive stuff, and and you only get to actually compete maybe once a week. Where wrestling, you're doing it 3-4 times a week, 5 matches a day, and you're getting a lot of experience.
Well, in Texas, there's corporate sponsoring. So the football team, we had cleats, we had turf shoes, we had different jerseys, we had all that stuff. And even wrestling was cheap, but now, if you look at wrestling right now, the people that are having success with wrestling come from money. It's changed now because when I was around, you could still be a poor wrestler and be a national champion and make it on somewhere. But now, the people you see with success are the ones that come from money.
Well, for sure, expensive gear, expensive one-on-one training and lessons, going to private camps, and even going and traveling around to different locations to get to the best tournaments, right?
Competitions, tournaments, all that.
Absolutely. So then you went to college after wrestling. Did you stop playing football? Was there no college football at all?
Nah, I was over football. And, I was all in with wrestling. I remember my senior year, this one dude, I forgot his name, they call him Big Cat. He came in and he said, raise your hand to all the football players. He's like, raise your hand if you're going D1. And everybody raised their hand. He said, raise your hand if you're going to the league. And everybody raised their hand. But I was thinking to myself, like, man, I don't know about football. I like wrestling better. So I stuck with wrestling. So when I got to college, as a matter of fact, after my final, I paid this kid, Alan Zhao. I paid him $48 to drive me from Plano to Norman, Oklahoma, so I could stay with my cousin in Norman. And I remember I stayed with him, and then the next morning, on Monday, I went to the OU wrestling room. I sat there from like 7 a.m. waiting for someone to show up. And finally, around 9 and 10, Byron Tucker, All-American and national champion, Byron Tucker from Virginia, showed up to the wrestling room. And then that was it. The rest was history.
So you started out at a Division II school, Central Oklahoma, right? And you won a national title with them. What was it like wrestling at the Division II level?
Well, it was tough because Central Oklahoma, we carried a D1 schedule. So our first dual meet was versus Oklahoma University. So mind you, I was in Norman, Oklahoma, wrestling with them boys every day, getting destroyed. And then the first wrestling match was versus Oklahoma, and I went. I beat the guy that I wrestled. So it was crazy, because we wrestled Oklahoma. We wrestled tournaments at Oklahoma State, Nebraska. we were at the big tournaments, and we were a D2 school, but we were a tough D2 school with a lot of respect because people knew that our guys could wrestle.
When you were a two-time All-American there, was it Coach DJ? Was DJ your coach back then?
Yeah. Derek James, yep, he's the man. Great
so
coach.
Definitely a great coach who just recently retired a few years ago. I know we've talked about that. How did he develop you and get you ready? Because then you made the jump. You went to a Division I school, and not just a Division I school. You went to one of the best Division I schools in the history of wrestling, and succeeded there. How did he get you ready for that?
Well, we had a great coaching staff. Him, Sean Bateman, Edmund Lauren. Then he brought in guys like Gregor Plotnick, the Cunningham brothers. You know, I forgot the guy's name. We call him Old Squirrel. He was a 133-pounder. He brought in alumni. And these guys would come in like Howard Moore and Hardell Moore from Oklahoma State. He was an All-American, I think national champion or national runner-up. He was there running the kids club. So I had a chance to wrestle with a plethora of world-class or All-American or national championship caliber wrestlers. And then on top of that, before our wrestling practice, I would catch a ride or I'd pay somebody to take me to Norman so I can go drill or wrestle live with Byron Tucker. And then I drive back to Edmond, do our wrestling practice, and then after that, I'll stay after wrestle with Hardell. So I was doing 3 or 4 days during school.
My back hurts just hearing that story. I mean, I think that's the part that a lot of people just don't understand and don't get is being at that level, being an All-American in college wrestling. You're not going to a 2-hour practice once a day. You are having to sacrifice a lot of time and energy and your body and your freedom. And it's not easy. It's difficult. It'd be one thing to go to swimming practice a few times a day and get in the pool. It's another thing to get tossed around into a Division I wrestling room and murdered by guys left and right just to make yourself a little bit better. You've seen Division I wrestling rooms and you've seen MMA gyms. Which one do you think is more intense?
By far, the wrestling room. It could be any college wrestling room or the Olympic Training Center. Because one thing about wrestling's pure offense. And if you see defense, it's counter offense. It's not just defense, it's counter offense. So everything is go, go, go. There's no passivity. You have to go and break your opponent's will, skill, and everything. You have to break them down. And that's what you learn as a wrestler.
So you transitioned well into freestyle wrestling. When you were in high school, when you were in college, did you get a taste of freestyle wrestling, or did you stop college and then transition to freestyle?
Well, while I was in high school, I was a Texas State champion in freestyle, but I could never afford to go to Fargo because it was just too costly. And then when I moved to Oklahoma, I had the chance to wrestle with Byron Tucker and other guys that were preparing for the U.S. Open, and they're preparing for World Team Trials. So I had a chance to be immersed in that. And then after Byron Tucker finished his college career, he continued to wrestle freestyle. So he was his main rival was Joe Williams. So I had to play Joe Williams at times, and got a chance to wrestle Byron Tucker and Barry Weldon and other guys that are preparing for the U.S. Open or the World Team Trials.
That was a tough weight class too. I remember being in Vegas in '99. I wrestled in the Nationals, the Open. I just went as a kid, a 17-year-old kid. And that weight class with Joe Williams, I mean, there was 3 or 4 pages worth of guys in that weight class. There were so many. What a same thing with Jordan Burroughs and stuff. That 160-poundish, 170-poundish, it's stacked with talent, and we see that still in the United States. So you ended up winning 3 national championships, and you represented the U.S. for the world team in 2005. Controversial, bitter, passivity call with 1 second left in the match. Walk me through the feeling in that.
Yeah, that was tough because no one expected me to even hang with Sajid Sajidov. And I studied him. I had the whole weight class broken down. I knew who was who and what their strong points were, and I always thought I could defeat Sajid, and I thought I did until I looked to my right and I saw the passivity 1 point with 1 second left, and I didn't know what to think because like I think after that match he lost. He was spent. He lost his next match, and I don't know. I really don't know what to think about that because I had him, man. I had him. I took him down.
I've talked to a lot of guys from the US that have wrestled internationally and especially at world championships and stuff. And there's a level of corruption and there's a level of favoritism towards guys. I mean, to call a guy like King Mo passive with 1 second left and take the match from him is absolutely wild, especially being that the guy that won the world championships that year, you beat him.
Yeah.
So you beat the world champion, which shows that, you were on the level of the best guys on the on the planet. So let's take it into Real Pro Wrestling. So Real Pro Wrestling was a concept that came up and was a great concept, right? It was giving some guys some opportunity to make some money that had really, back then wrestling, there was no way to make money. MMA hadn't really exploded yet. It was there, but it wasn't making money. They bring you in as a guy that they think is going to lose, and you wipe the mat with everybody there and you win the whole thing. What did you think about the Real Pro Wrestling concept?
I thought it was a great concept, but the only thing about Real Pro Wrestling was the concept was there, but the fan base wasn't. So if you see Ralph is doing it right, and the fans understand Ralph, because they know that, hey, you're out there as combat, be you, be bigger than life, and go out there, have fun, and be competitive. If you have to be an asshole, be one. Where back then, I lost camps because I remember when Rulon was like, "Hey Mo, Daniel, Joe Warren, go out there and have fun. Be bigger than life. Just go out there because we're trying to sell this." So we did that, and we faced backlash because the wrestling base back then was all about respect and honor. And I was like, yeah, respect and honor in FILA wrestling, in NCAA wrestling, but this is something else different. And back then, they did not understand the concept. But now, they got that concept under on lock, and it's actually helping amateur wrestling grow. Where you see MMA, to me, in a sense, MMA is dying in a sense. You don't see as much variety. But with grappling arts, like, grappling and wrestling, collegiate wrestling and freestyle, you're starting to see explode on social media. I have a cousin from Houston who never wrestled before, but he's watching Ralph. He sends me clips. He knows people's names. And he didn't watch wrestling until I started, like, the Olympic stuff. And once I was done, he fell out of it, and now since RAF is like gotten almost mainstream, he's watching it. He enjoys it. He thinks it's exciting, and I think that RAF has brought excitement to wrestling.
Well, it's cool matchups, right? Like it's matchups you've never gotten to see, where you are getting UFC athletes with a wrestling background that are coming in and competing in a wrestling background against other wrestlers. You're getting some really high level guys. And now it's the showmanship. You're actually getting to have a personality on top of the competing and the spirit. Because at the end of the day, I'll be one of the first ones to admit, freestyle wrestling might not necessarily be the most interesting spectator sport. Even college wrestling, we can sell out the NCAA finals with 20,000 people. It may not be the most interesting sport because, like you said, there's not the personality. It's go out, shut your mouth, wrestle, and be done with it. Where RAF is kind of letting them be who you are. And to transition on that, you were one of the first guys that I saw that came to MMA with a personality. A guy that wore a crown and had people walk him out and got carried out on a chair and all these things that I'd never seen that before. I never saw a fighter with a personality. They came out serious, didn't say a word, stormed to the mat, stormed to the cage, fought, and they were done. Where now we got this guy that's making it entertaining. What inspired that character for you? Was it the pro wrestling aspect of it? What was it that inspired that for you?
big time pro wrestling. Muhammad Ali said, like, I think was it boy? Like, I forgot who he said was his influence. I forgot. I used to quote him all the time. I'm getting a little older now, but
you turned 45 this year, buddy.
Ali was influenced by pro wrestling. I grew up watching pro wrestling. NWA was my thing back then when I was young, and then coming to America, when Prince Hakeem was walking around, he had the women throwing rose petals at his feet, and I just like the pageantry of pro wrestling, and I thought that I'd bring that to MMA. Then you have guys like Mayhem Miller and Genki Sudo, who did the same thing, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do it too.
And it was extremely entertaining. I saw it in boxing. One of the first times I saw it in boxing was Prince Naseem Hamed, where every boxer I've ever seen walks straight to the ring, and Prince, he does this dancing behind a blacked out screen where you could only see his shadow, and I didn't know there was even a rule at the time that you had a certain amount of time to walk to the ring, because nobody ever took the time to do it. And he put on a show, and I was like, man, this is great. I've never seen this before. And you were really the first guy that I saw do it in MMA. So your MMA career is really legendary. And I think one of the big things about it is we see a lot now. We just saw it with Hamzat, right? He cut 46 pounds to make weight and killed himself, where you were a guy that did the opposite. You walked around 210, 215, fighting at heavyweight, fighting these monsters like Mark Kerr and Mirko Krokop and all these guys. What was your mentality in, I don't care about cutting weight, I don't care about that, I want to go out and fight the biggest, best guys? What inspired you to do that?
I was all about just fighting money weight, because really, when I watched the UFC originally, there was no weight class. So I was like, if they can do it, I can do it, and I'm going to do it. I wasn't worried about size. I just want to go out there, have fun, win, and get paid. If I lost, hey, at least I tried to get the W. But I just want to go out there and just show that I was the better man that night.
Because most guys your size, they're honestly fighting at welterweight. And I'll tell you that right now, they're fighting at welterweight. 205, 210, they cut to welterweight no problem. So it was pretty encouraging to see a guy that just said, I'm good, I'm going to go out there and fight. But not only did you do that, but you won. You nearly ended Mark Kerr's life. You've beat UFC champions like Yuri. You've been in there with some of the best guys in the absolute world. You've fought in Ryzen. You've won their Grand Prix. You've been a Strikeforce world champion. You've been a multiple-time U.S. wrestling national champion. You've represented us at the world team. How does a kid from a single mom moving around that has no money, how does a kid watching this in the same position as you, how do they become a King Mo?
You know what? You have to invest in yourself, believe in yourself, and be consistent with whatever you do. So if you want to be the best, you have to train. You have to go out there and do extra. And that's what I did. I did when I took it to extreme. I was always running. I would try to do push-ups. I was doing squats, lunges. I just spent my time. If I wasn't doing anything, I spent my time working out. And especially when I was young, I was just trying to be bigger, stronger, faster. And then eventually I became smarter once I got to college. But it's about investing in yourself, believing in yourself, staying consistent, and staying true to your goals and to your path.
So you had a pretty serious health scare one time. You got a really bad staph infection. Talk me through that.
Yeah. So I had a knee surgery and I had a cadaver. I think it's a allograft, they call it. And after surgery, I noticed my knee was getting swollen. It felt warm. And it was the same day. Chael Sonnen was fighting Rashad. They both walked out. And early in that day, I had my knee tapped. So they drained my knee to see what was in it. And it was green, but I wasn't thinking nothing of it. And right as Rashad was walking to the cage, My doctor calls me and says, Mo, come to the hospital right now. We have to have emergency surgery. You have a bad staph infection in your knee. And once I had that surgery, I was in and out the hospital for about a good like 3 months. And I was like, it was crazy.
So you had, 103-degree temperature, and the infection actually ate away at part of your hips and legs, right?
Yeah, put my knee, more my knee. I just
You could see you could almost see the bone. Isn't
yeah.
that? Yeah. I mean, that's just crazy. And we're seeing more and more now in this space of resistant, antibiotic resistant staph infection.
MRSA, methylene resistant Staphylococcus aureus, I believe.
We just saw it happen to our boy Ben. He almost died, had to get a double lung transplant. It's really serious. Have you seen any outbreaks like that at the gym, or how do you guys prevent that at the gym from spreading?
Well, I have a quick story before I answer that question. I remember my senior year, I was seated like 4th or 5th in the preseason rankings. And there's a guy from Pittsburgh, I forgot his name, but rest in peace. He was wrestling his wrestle-off, won it, but as during the match, his contact fell out. So he picks it up, puts it back in his eye, and dies from a staph infection. What's this calling me? Dies from a staph infection that ate through his eye. So,
wild. And I've seen that. I've always wondered why guys will wear contacts wrestling. I've never understood it, because I've seen blind guys win CIF championships in California. You don't need contacts in. And I've seen people have a contact pop out, splash some water on it, and put it right back in their eye. So definitely something you don't want to do. Wow, that's horrible. So the gym, how do you guys prevent that, or what measures do you take to prevent that from spreading? Because you have a huge gym with a lot of people.
Yeah, they use bleach and some other cleaners. And then when I get home, I bathe in something called Hibiclens, which is something they use for in the hospitals for those people that are allergic to iodine.
So you're still on the mats now, right?
Not as much. Not as much. Like, I think I'm gonna start back on it, but I took a little break from being on the mats. But I'm just lifting weights more than anything. Lifting weights and staying fit.
Staying fit as always. I mean, I turned 45 next week. We're getting a little older, but we're also seeing a resurgence of guys that just aren't aging. Look at Andre, a guy that you've cornered and coached and worked with a lot. The guy could probably still be a top 15 heavyweight in the UFC right now.
And don't surprise me seeing him back in the UFC. He's reversed the hands of time. He's a beast.
It's unbelievable. And then what's our Cuban buddy's name? Yoel Romero. I mean, look at him. The guy's not aged a bit. I don't understand how it's going on. Where one thing I tell people about wrestling, you don't see people transition into wrestling in their 30s. Yeah. They transition out in their late 20s because it's such a hard sport. It's so demanding. It's so difficult. But you were able to stay in and then transition MMA. How old were you for your first MMA fight?
I think I was 28, 29. I think 28, 29.
So even technically a pretty late start. I mean, we've seen UFC champions in their early 20s. We're seeing guys really in their mid to late 20s really peaking in the UFC, and that's when you first started. What was it like, your first MMA fight?
I took the fight on short notice and ended up going to Japan and fighting Travis View. And, a
TKO win in just a little over 2 minutes. Now, Japan, you go to Japan as an American athlete, the fans love you. They'll line up 500 deep just to get an autograph from you and not even know who you are, but they know you're an athlete. What was it like fighting over in Japan?
Japan was amazing. Very respectful crowd, and lifetime fans. It was overwhelming at first because they knew who I was when I got there. They knew about my college wrestling background. They knew about the team I trained with, and they're just very respectful. And I was expecting to, see a bunch of people that were unruly and
not in Japan.
No, they're quiet, respectful. I could hear my instructors. I could hear my opponent breathing. I could hear everything because it's just you know.
And they truly love the sport. Like, they'll fill up 100,000 seat arenas to
Yeah.
watch it because they truly do love it. Is that one of the things that inspired you to go back to Ryzen, to go back to Japan and fight over there?
Yeah, I love Japan. Like Japan and Azerbaijan are my two favorite places to be at. But Japan just it's just different, especially now that I train Natalia Kuzentina. She's gonna be the future champion there, and they love her there because she's gonna finish fights with her grappling, and she's a judoka. Going back there, it was great, and helping to guide her through the Japanese system because she's gonna be a star, and she's gonna be a big, a legend over there. And I enjoy watching her go through the process of becoming a legend.
Now, you've gotten to travel a lot, even more so on the coaching aspect. Russia and all these countries. What's it been like doing that, especially for a black male going to a place like Russia, where we've talked about it, where I'm texting you every day to make sure you haven't been
Yeah.
kidnapped? What's the feeling when you go over there?
Well, with my name being Muhammad, some of the Russians that they're from Dagestan and Chechnya show me a different type of respect. And I like Russia. When I was just there, I didn't want to leave. Being in St. Petersburg is beautiful. Moscow's changed because, mind you, I hadn't been in Russia since 2007. Before that, so when I was in Russia prior to this, it looked horrible. But when I went back, it looked different. It looked cleaner. It looked better. It's night and day because when I was there in 2006, 2007, everyone looked miserable. They looked miserable and they looked poor and broke. When I went this time, I was in the same region, like the Red Square, and I saw a bunch of tourists, like people. I saw different colors because back in the day, people just wore black and brown and gray. This time, I saw people wearing like red, orange. It was just it had a different vibe to it this time around. And this is during the time they were going through extreme sanctions. This is last year, so I don't know. It's just I don't know. I guess the people there are very resilient because here in America, you think that Russia is like broken, struggling, and it might be. I was only there for about a week, but from what I saw, it looked like everyone was on the same page and they looked happy.
And I'm glad you brought that tough and resilient part up because we're seeing that resurgence and that influence from all these guys from that region of the world coming to the UFC and coming to MMA and being extremely, extremely successful. We've seen it in wrestling. They've always been dogs in wrestling, and now they're coming to MMA. And one of the things that I've always been told about those guys is they're not scared of anything. They don't care. They grew up with 12 brothers and they ate, their dinner was a can of pickled herring fish, you know what I mean? And they all had to fight over it. So they come to the US and they're like, man, you guys have McDonald's, you have Burger King. I mean, this is the life to live. And it's easier for them because they've been through so much. And it's interesting to see how they've transitioned MMA and how they've done well. 20 years ago, you didn't really see a lot of Russians. 20 years ago, if you told me there'd be a British UFC champion or an Australian UFC champion, I'd have told you you're crazy. It's never happening. So we've seen this global impact that wrestling and MMA has had on the world and athletes. And going to jiu-jitsu. So, we also do a jiu-jitsu promotion where we're getting to see some really high-level guys transition into jiu-jitsu. Tell me about your jiu-jitsu experiences.
I just got tapped a lot by guys like Hama Baral. So I used to just roll with guys, Nogueira, Fabricio Verdum, Vinny Magalhaes, Hama Baral, if I mention his name, just a plethora of different guys. And I just got destroyed. But I became the Black Houdini because I became hard to submit. And I escaped from submissions. But I respect jiu-jitsu. I'm better at teaching it and showing the breakdown stuff. But as far as like being embraced into it, it's just too complicated, man. Because it changed. The trends changed so much. At one point, it was top game being heavy. Then it was deep half. Then it was back take. Then it was 50-50. Then it was this guard, that guard, and spider guard, and this. So it's very trendy. And whoever is hot at the moment has a style that everyone wants to emulate. And that's how it is in boxing. But I feel like more so jiu-jitsu. Because in boxing, Floyd had the shoulder roll, and a few people, like the younger guys, copied that. But jiu-jitsu or grappling, it's like, I don't know, it's just so many different styles, and there's so many different people that are successful with a plethora of different styles.
For sure. But, you talk about getting tapped by these guys, but then you faced one of the greatest grapplers probably in the history of the world. And, maybe even the best Gracie in the world, Roger Gracie, and you handled him fairly easily. You TKO'd him, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you took Roger Gracie, who was supposed to be, the future, the next Gracie name, and you wiped the mat with him. How was it knowing you were going against a guy with that high level pedigree of jiu-jitsu?
I wasn't worried because I felt like they moved him too fast. And I was thinking to myself, he's too tall. He's not that fast. He can't shoot. The only way that the fight will go to the ground is if I catch a leg and take him down, or if I double leg him. And I watched a few of his films. I watched some of his film, watched him strike, and I was like, I'm not gonna shoot. And besides that, I just started running my mouth saying, if I want to take him down, I'm gonna show him that American wrestling is better than jiu-jitsu. And I was just trying to play mind games with him because I was like, I'll take him down and he ain't gonna do nothing. And I was just running my mouth, but the whole time I knew, I was like, man, I'm gonna knock his ass out. I was like, I'm not gonna wrestle or grapple with this guy because he's 6'5", 6'6". He's flexible, long and lanky, and he's the best grappler amongst them. Everyone I knew that grappled him, from my old wrestling coach from Iran, Yosef Ali Rezai, he wrestled him in Pan Am's as a blue belt, and he was the only person not to get tapped by him. And he told me, Mo, if he gets on top of you, he feels like a ton of bricks. I couldn't move. He's strong as hell. Robert Drysdale told me he's strong as hell. Hamro Baral. Everybody said, Mo, if he's on top of you, just try to survive. Luckily, he has no ground and pound, so just watch out for his triangle or his arm bar or his head and arm. They named a plethora of submissions, so I was like, all right. All I did was I found myself, I went to Robert Drysdale's gym, and I was like, all right, 4 minutes and 30 seconds, put in the clock. The goal is for me to survive. And that's how I worked on survival off my back in the worst case scenarios, just in case I was to face the worst case scenario in that fight versus Roger Gracie.
See, and I'm glad you mentioned that. One of my last fights, I was training at USA Karate under Robbie Beard, who's under Master Ricardo Laborio. And he said, when we train for the fight, we're not going to train where you're good. We're going to train and put you in bad positions. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, wait a second. That's brilliant. Like everybody wants to go in there, and a wrestler just wants to work takedowns and work top game. It's very hard to get them to transition. Sometimes you're going to be on your back, and you've got to know how to fight off your back. You've got to know what to do off your back.
Yeah.
So getting in bad positions was like, it was eye-opening to me. Like I never really thought about that until he told me. And then I would tell everybody, you know what? Start on my back, start in full mount, start with an arm bar, start with a choke, and make me actually work. Because if not, I'm a wrestler. I'm probably going to be on top, and I'm going to stall out, and I'm going to be in a half guard, and I'm just going to ride the clock where I'm not being offensive. But being in a bad position made me be offensive. You're now, one of the head coaches of American Top Team. You've developed unbelievable amount of talent at that gym. Let's say I'm a guy that wants to come to American Top Team. What are you looking for to make me a part of that team?
First of all, you have to contact Richie, the gym manager. Richie's the man, and run it by him. Then when you come, we just want to see how bad you want it, because we want you to have talent, but we want to know if you're coachable, if you can, overcome any type of adversity, because you're going to face adversity. A lot of people that come to the gym they were the big fish or the big dog in their gym, and now they're coming to a gym full of sharks, hammerhead sharks and great white sharks and killer whales, and they're a guppy. So eventually you have to grow into one of those big predatory roles. But, we want to see if you can overcome, if you can fight back, if you show some resistance. There's a guy named Jason Eastman. He's
fought for our title.
Yeah, and he came to our gym, and he was a bum. Boy, he was like one of the worst guys. I was like, man, this guy's terrible. Look at him. But month after month, I see him get kicked, get punched. Then I saw him slipping punches, checking kicks. Then I saw him landing kicks. Then I saw him getting taken down, fighting. And I saw the progression into him becoming the man. Like, he became a killer whale in the gym. And, just when you seeing the growth of these athletes is amazing. It kind of puts things in perspective, because I have to remember I was once where Jason was.
Now, my first introduction to you was really unique. You came to Memphis, and you didn't do, I live right outside of Memphis, and you didn't do a 1-hour seminar for $100 a head. You did a full 3-day camp completely free of charge to anybody that wanted to come, regardless of school or affiliation. That's just not something we see, coaches at your level doing really at all. I couldn't name if it's ever happened before, to be honest with you. What motivated you to do something like that, to give back to the MMA community?
I love to teach, and I was lucky to have that done for me. In high school, Coach Sid Berry, Coach Randy Jeffries, Coach Kepke, they came out and looked out for me, wrestled with me. They didn't have to. Then we got to college, the alumni, like Grego Plotnick and the Cunningham brothers, they came to wrestle. Howard Moore came, and they gave back, Wes White. And that's my way of giving back, It's not about money. It's about seeing if you can make a change and seeing if you can see people improve. And, I met Ryan Spahn, and look what he's doing now. He's when I met him, he was a guppy. Now he's a big dog. He's a killer whale, and I'm lucky. I'm proud to say that. I'm not saying I helped him grow, but I had a chance to witness his growth as an athlete. Just after the seminar itself, I just like to see people come out there and learn and try to improve themselves, because if you're trying to improve, that means that you're around people that want better.
Well, like you've mentioned, guys come from gyms where they are the big guy, then they go to a big gym and they're not anymore. And that's one of the things I tell guys: if you're serious about this, if you're the best guy in your gym, you're probably not at the best gym for you to be at anymore. You need to go somewhere. We see a lot of cross training. We have a lot of Philly guys in Philly that do cross training all over. Dean Thomas will go up there and train with them. And some guys, Riley Palmer comes down to, living in training at American Top Team. He's actually fighting on our Liberty Hill card this month. He's one of the top prospects in the country. What are your thoughts on cross training? Do you take that personal if someone says, "Hey, I'm going to go train at another location to get some more bodies"? What are your thoughts on that?
I have no problem with that. Now, sometimes some gym owners might, but to me, the more feels you get and the more looks you get, the better. Because every time you go to a different gym and you encounter a new style or a new body type, that's information you're taking in to help you progress with your fight career or progress as a coach. You want all the experience that you can get so you can become a better athlete, a better coach, a better fighter, or better at whatever you're choosing to do. So I did that. I had so many training partners, and I sparred with so many different people. That's why I can, as a coach, I can be like, hey, this guy reminds me of this guy I sparred with. Watch out for this. Or this guy's like this, so hey, he's gonna gas at this time. Watch for, I just know I've experienced, and my experiences have helped me become a better coach.
I think when we're in a wrestling room, when you were wrestling on your team, you knew which guys you could beat. You knew which guy would give you a rest round because you could beat him up. And then you also knew what guy you were a rest round for because he would beat you up. And I think sometimes when you go to these new gyms, now you don't have that anymore. You don't have that, who can I beat up? Who can I not beat up? Who's better than me? And you get challenged a little more. And it's always a little chip on your shoulder when you go to another gym. You don't want to lose. So you do push yourself a little harder, and they push you harder too. So I think it's great that we're getting some cross training and we're getting guys that can come to American Top Team that don't even live there, and they'll come there just to train for a specific fight because of the bodies and the people that they have and the coaching staff. On any given day, how many guys do you think are in there training?
Too many to count. We have killers from all divisions, killers from all organizations. It's just too many to count. At least like 60 to 70.
Florida has become a hotbed for really, really good MMA gyms. And what do you think is driving that change to bring them all to Florida?
The warm weather. Just all the gyms are pretty much close in proximity. We're not too far from each other. The coaches, everything's here. Even boxing, everything aside from kickboxing. Well, actually, kickboxing, you have Henry Hooft up there. We have good kickboxing coaches as well. Everything you need to be a champion is in South Florida. Conditioning, the weather, the strength training, the beach, the food, the training partners. All of that is here in South Florida.
And you're a quick drive from a lot of places, right? You can get to Tampa, you can get to Orlando, you're in Miami, you can get to Fort Lauderdale, you can get to all these places within a couple hours. Yeah. We see a lot of talent. We do shows in Tampa, 2, 3, 4 shows a year in Tampa, and the crowds are absolutely insane. What we get told is there's not enough fight promotions in Florida to account for all the fighters in Florida. So, we always love getting down there. Now, I see a lot. You've been to shows, almost every show that we've been to. You've been to North Dakota. You've been to Philadelphia, Atlantic City, Tampa. You've been to everywhere we're at. I've seen you in the back of the house take guys that coaches didn't show up or something happened and their corner didn't show up, and you've cornered them. You didn't even know the guys, and you would hold their bucket or hold their ice or just be there to be that extra set of eyes for people. When I don't see that as a common practice with a lot of coaches. Again, what inspires you to do something like that?
It helps me because if I can provide instruction to a person that I don't know, and I don't know much about his background, but I can see his athletic ability, I can see his limitations, and off that, I can draw up a game plan. And if the game plan is successful, then hey, I learned something. It's gonna help me. If it's unsuccessful, I'm like, hey, you know what? Maybe we should went to plan B, C, or D. So that helps me learn as an athlete as well. Some people wouldn't do that, but I take it as a challenge. I accept all challenges that make sense.
Well, I think it's also kind of cool when some amateur kid that showed up and only one of his coaches came, and now he's got King Mo in his corner. He never anticipated that, and it's a great thing for the sport to see that kind of integrity and that kind of dedication to athletes. I just really thank you for coming on. I really wanted people to know and hear who King Mo really is, the guy that I know that a lot of people don't know. People don't know about you doing things like that in the back of the house because you don't advertise it. People don't know about the free seminars that you've done because you don't put that as your personality. Your personality is a coach that goes in there with a bunch of killers, but on the other side, you're a guy that's dedicated a lot to the sport, coming from nothing to a world champion. It's an honor to get to have you, and it's really an honor to call you my friend, someone that I can talk to all the time and bullshit about. And I think you still owe me some Korean fried chicken, but we'll
get some. We'll
take that up.
We'll get some.
I'll get you a cheesesteak next time in Philly. But
if we're in Tampa next time, there we can get some Nigerian food. It's a good Nigerian restaurant.
Even better.
Get some jollof rice.
So we've seen a lot of rise of Nigerian athletes in the UFC as well, in an MMA. We've seen some in Africa. Could Africa be the next hotspot of MMA?
I think Africa be the next hotspot of combat sports. Bare knuckle. You see a rise in boxing. You see a rise in MMA. You see a rise in kickboxing. Grappling soon to come. I think that, we're only scratching the surface in a lot of these places. I feel like North America and South America might be tapped out. I feel like Europe is still growing. Asia still growing. Australia definitely still growing.
A big surprise there, and it definitely is.
Big time. Australia, you see the boxing, the kickboxing, the grappling. The only thing they lack is wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else is up to par, world class.
But the jiu-jitsu's there. You've got world-class jiu-jitsu guys there, which, again, totally surprised me because I wrestled a team from New Zealand. We hosted a team from New Zealand, and, we took them to all these high school teams. I don't know if they won a match the whole time they were there. We just murdered them. Because they weren't good, and now look at how they've evolved in 20 years. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Same thing with the UK. You're seeing guys like Leon Edwards and Fabian Edwards taking people down. You're seeing at one point the UK was just full of guys that can strike and brawl, and they're tough. Now you're seeing guys that are athletic. They can strike, grapple, they can wrestle. They almost look American.
If you told me before, UK guys boxing, I'm in your corner. I got it. They're going to win. But UK guys doing jujitsu, you got UK guys doing MMA, and Michael Bisping, wins a world title, wins a UFC title, and beats one of the greatest jujitsu MMA fighters ever in Anderson Silva. So it's been an evolution, and that's why they say this really is the fastest growing sport in the world, and you get a front seat to that. Getting to watch the guys at the regional level, the amateur level, all the way up to main events in UFC. Who do you think on your roster now is the next to get the big call up?
And there's so many people. There's so many people. We have so many killers. There's a guy named Saeed Salma, who's a beast. K-Tag, this guy named K-Tag. He's a beast, a heavyweight. Baltraz, there are guys from Ossetia. A few of the young ladies that train our gym. It's just so many people at our gym that any moment they can get the call, and they'll be, give them 4 good fights, they'll be a contender somewhere at some show. We're so deep. Some people get lost in the shuffle because we have so much talent there. They're not neglected. It's just that they might show up and shine, and all of a sudden some new guy comes in and outshines them, and it's a competition of who's going to shine the most and shine the brightest.
Absolutely. We've seen it. And again, I've seen all that talent coming out of Florida, and I've seen all that talent coming out of your schools and American Top Team. It is a place that guys go if they are truly serious about MMA as a future and as a sport for themselves. What's next for you? What have you got going on?
Got some cornering. Rizvan Kuniev is fighting Tyrell Fortune in Abu Dhabi. Then I got Scrappy Natalia Kuzentina. She's fighting in Japan. Haytag Sabiev is fighting soon. Haytag is a heavyweight that is crazy good. He's fast. He's a southpaw, but he's slick and smooth. He has power. He can wrestle. He can grapple. He's aggressive, but he can counter. He has it all, and he's getting pushed by guys like like Saeed Salma, So I don't know. I just right now I'm not sure what I got going on because there's so much going on in the gym, So I just I take it by, who comes and talks to me. But for the most part, I'm in the gym every day, watching these guys and watch these guys and ladies improve, and I love it. I love it.
When do you sleep? Because I can text you at 1 PM or 1 a.m, and you usually answer me within 10 seconds every time. You stay so busy there. I don't understand when do you even get rest? When do you get a day off?
I don't sleep much. I just need about 3 or 4 hours of sleep, and I'm good. So I go to bed late, and I'm up early. So I'm up about 5 or 6 every morning, if not earlier. I'm up early.
I know, because I can text you early and you always answer, and I can text you late and you answer. So I think that's a dedication too that you have, because a lot of guys that pillow and that snooze seems a lot better than getting up and going on a 4-mile run or getting to the gym at 5 o'clock before going to work, and then going to work all day, then going to the gym after work, and then eating right, and then getting a good night's sleep. It's difficult. And you were a guy that learned how to do it all, and we appreciate you, and I really appreciate you coming on. Don't want to take up too much of your time. I'm going to let you go so we can get this first episode ended, but I really appreciate what the Controlled Chaos is going to be all about. Is going to be about learning about guys like you, learning the things that people don't know about a world champion and a world champion level coach, and a guy that's one of the best in the business that I've personally met. And I've met a lot of people in this business. So make sure you like and subscribe, follow us, Controlled Chaos Jason on YouTube. I'm on Facebook, all that stuff. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you follow King Mo. He's always posting really great stuff on Instagram, his travels. That's how I know he's going out of the damn country, and I got to make sure he's okay, because he's always posting a lot of top guys and a lot of interviews. You've got your own stuff going on, the King's Corner, all those things. So make sure you give King Mo a follow. Anybody else you want to give a shout out to?
You again, CFFC, for putting on great fights, and everyone out there doing something positive and just trying to improve. Shout out to y'all.
Well, thank you, Mo. We're going to let you go, but I can't thank you enough. Big shout out to Mo. I appreciate you, brother.
Thanks for having me on, bro.
Yes, sir. All right, folks, that's going to do it for episode number 1. Now, we've got episode 2 coming up next week. I'll get the graphic up for that one right now. We're going to have your boy, Eric Anders, May 19th. We're going to push this one back an hour to 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So catch your boy, Eric Anders, a 20-fight UFC veteran, gym owner, national champion football player at the University of Alabama. So that's going to be a good one. Remember, that one's May 19th. We've got some other big guests coming up that I'm getting secured and lined up that it's going to be really interesting to hear from. And I just want to say, everybody, thank you again for tuning in to our first episode. I've got a producer working in the back for me that's helping push the buttons and get me through this. We got the studio set up, so we're going to hopefully keep going. Questions, comments, concerns, anything, let us know. But as for the first episode, we are out. Thank you.